We hope you are enjoying our audiobooks. We would love for you to let us know where you are listening from. Let us know in the comments. Please be sure to like and subscribe to help us bring you more audiobooks. Don't forget to click for notification when new books are ready. The Guardian's Heart. Chapter 1. Aveline. He wasn't what I expected. Carice was supposed to be twisted by dark magic. This man looked barely into his 30s, with sharp features that might have been handsome if not for the scowl that darkened his face. His eyes were the deep blue of a midnight sky, and they fixed on me with an intensity that made me want to step back. "I am not Carice," he said, his voice low and edged with irritation. "And you're trespassing." Trespassing. I kept my arrow trained on him. "This forest is part of the kingdom's territory." His expression darkened further. "This forest belongs to no kingdom. It belongs to itself, and I am its guardian. You need to leave. Now. Not until I find Carice." I studied him carefully. The power rolling off him was undeniable, but something felt different from the dark, twisted magic I'd sensed at the attack sites. This felt older, wilder. "If you're not Carice, then tell me where he is." "I don't answer to hunters." He took a step toward me, and the forest seemed to move with him, branches shifting, leaves rustling though there was no wind. "This is your only warning. Leave, or I will make you leave." My jaw tightened. I dealt with plenty of men who thought they could intimidate me with threats. I have a duty to the kingdom and to the people Carice has hurt. I'm not leaving until he's captured. "Duty." The word dripped with disdain. "Your duty means nothing here. This forest has stood for 1,000 years, long before your kingdom existed. The magic here is beyond your understanding, and you're disrupting its balance simply by being here. Then help me find Carice and I'll be gone." "No." "Why not? If you're really some guardian and not just another rogue sorcerer, why wouldn't you want to stop someone spreading dark magic?" Something flashed in his eyes. Anger, maybe, or recognition. "Because bringing warriors and hunters into these woods only invites more chaos. I deal with threats to the forest in my own way." "People are dying," I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. "Children are sick. Entire harvests are ruined. Whatever your own way is, it's not working fast enough." His jaw clenched. "You know nothing about what I've done or what I'm capable of. And you know nothing about this forest. Every step you take here has consequences you can't begin to comprehend. So educate me." I lowered my bow slightly, not enough to lose the advantage, but enough to show I was willing to talk. "Or at least point me in the right direction and I'll be out of your hair." "The right direction would be back the way you came." "I couldn't help it," I laughed. "You know, for a mystical forest guardian, you're remarkably unhelpful." His scowl deepened. "And for someone on an important mission, you're remarkably cavalier about mocking someone who could turn you into a tree." "Could you really?" I asked, genuinely curious now despite the threat. "Turn me into a tree? Do you want to find out?" "Not particularly. But I've found that people who have to constantly threaten others usually don't have as much power as they claim." It was a gamble, but I'd learned long ago that calling a bluff often revealed the truth. His eyes narrowed, and for a moment I thought I'd pushed too far. Then, surprisingly, something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "You're either very brave or very foolish." "I've been told both, depending on who you ask." I finally lowered my bow completely, though I kept the arrow nocked. "Look, I understand this forest is your territory. I respect that. But Carice is my responsibility. We don't have to be enemies." "We're not enemies," he said. "We're nothing. Because you're going to leave, and I'm going to forget you were ever here." "Stubborn, aren't you?" says the woman who refuses to leave despite multiple warnings. Despite the tension, I found myself almost smiling. There was something about his gruff demeanor that reminded me of Menel when I'd first started my training, all bluster and irritation hiding something deeper. "I'll make you a deal," I said. "Give me 3 days. If I haven't found any trace of Carice by then, I'll leave. You have my word." "Your word means nothing to me." "Then what would mean something?" "Because I'm not leaving, and you're apparently not going to force me out, so we might as well find a way to coexist." He stared at me for a long moment, and I got the distinct impression he was weighing options I couldn't see. Finally, he spoke. "Stay out of the heart of the forest. The eastern groves and northern meadows, you may search there. But the deeper woods are forbidden." "Why?" "Because I said so." I bit back another retort. It was a compromise, even if a grudging one. Fine. Eastern groves and northern meadows. He nodded curtly, then turned to leave. Wait, I called after him. What's your name? If we're going to be neighbors for the next 3 days, I should know what to call you. He paused, looking back over his shoulder. For a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Lucian. Aveline, I offered in return. He nodded once more and disappeared between the trees, moving so silently that he seemed to simply fade into the shadows. I stood alone in the clearing as darkness fell completely, the forest coming alive with night sounds around me. I'd expected many things when I entered the Thornwood: danger, magic, even Carice himself. But I hadn't expected Lucian. Setting up camp in a sheltered hollow, I couldn't shake the memory of those dark blue eyes and that scowl. He'd been infuriating, certainly. Obstinate. Rude, even. But there had been something else, too. Something in the way he'd looked at me, the way he'd ultimately granted me limited access to the forest. He could have forced me out, I was certain of that. The power I'd felt from him was immense. Yet he'd chosen negotiation over violence. As I settled in for the night, bow and dagger within easy reach, I found myself wondering what secrets Lucian was hiding in those forbidden deeper woods. And more pressingly, was he protecting something, or was he protecting someone? Tomorrow I would begin my search for Carice. But I had a feeling that finding the rogue sorcerer might be the least complicated part of my mission.
Chapter 2. Lucian. I should have forced her out the moment I sensed her crossing into the forest. Instead, I'd made the mistake of engaging with her, of talking to her. And now she was camped not half a mile from the heart of the forest, sleeping peacefully while I paced the ancient stone circle that served as my sanctum. You're troubled. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, the forest itself speaking through rustling leaves and creaking branches. She's going to be a problem, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. The hunter? The forest sounded amused, if such a thing were possible. She seems determined. She's reckless. She has no idea what she's walking into. I stopped pacing, staring out at the trees that had been my only company for more years than I cared to count. Carice has been here for weeks, and she thinks she can just track him down like some common criminal. And you think otherwise? I clenched my jaw. I know otherwise. Carice was brilliant even before he turned to dark magic. Whatever he's planning, it's more complex than random attacks on villages. The truth was, I'd been tracking Carice myself since I'd first sensed his corruption seeping into the forest's natural magic. He was careful, always staying just ahead of me, leaving traces of his presence like breadcrumbs meant to taunt. He knew I couldn't leave the forest, knew the binding spell that made me its guardian also made me its prisoner. Aveline didn't know any of this. She'd waltzed in with her bow and her confidence, thinking herself prepared for whatever she might face. She called me stubborn, but she was the most headstrong person I'd encountered in years. And annoyingly, that almost made me like her. You gave her permission to search the outer groves? The forest observed. Limited permission. I'll know if she tries to venture deeper. Will you stop her? I didn't answer immediately. The honest response was that I didn't know. Every instinct told me to drive her away, to maintain the isolation that had protected both me and the forest for so long. But something about the way she'd stood her ground, the determination in those green eyes, had made me hesitate. She said people were dying. I said finally, children. This troubles you. More than it should. I'd spent so long separated from the human world that its problems had begun to feel distant, abstract. But hearing Aveline speak of Carice's victims had stirred something I'd thought long buried, the memory of who I'd been before I became the guardian. Before I'd been bound to this forest and forgotten by everyone I'd once known. Get some rest, the forest urged gently. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. But sleep didn't come easily. Instead, I found myself back at the edge of the clearing where I'd confronted Aveline, drawn there by an impulse I didn't quite understand. Through the trees, I could see the dying light of her campfire. She'd been different from what I'd expected. Battle hunters were supposed to be harsh, cold, weapons pointed at problems until they were solved. But she'd smiled when I'd threatened her. Had actually seemed amused by our entire confrontation. More troubling, she'd been perceptive. Too perceptive. She'd seen through my threats immediately, had recognized them for what they were, bluster meant to intimidate rather than genuine intent to harm. In all my years as guardian, no one had ever called my bluff so effortlessly. You're watching the hunter. The forest's voice held a note of something that might have been concern. Why? Making sure she doesn't do anything foolish. Such as. such as wandering into Kariza's path unprepared. It was a reasonable explanation. A guardian's duty was to protect the forest and, by extension, those within it. Even annoying battle hunters with attitudes. Of course, the forest agreed, though I detected skepticism in its tone. I ignored it, settling against a tree trunk to keep my vigil. It was just precautionary, I told myself. Nothing more. But when dawn broke and I watched Aveline emerge from her bedroll, stretching in the early morning light, I couldn't quite convince myself that was the whole truth.
Chapter 3. Aveline. My second day in the Thornwood began with the distinct feeling of being watched. I'd learned to trust my instincts over the years, and those instincts were now screaming that someone, or something, had eyes on me. I went through my morning routine calmly, giving no indication I'd noticed, but my hand never strayed far from my weapons. The feeling persisted as I began my search of the eastern groves. Lucian had said I could explore this area, but I suspected he was monitoring my movements. Fine, let him watch. I had nothing to hide. The traces of dark magic were stronger here. Not Kariz himself, but residue, like a scent trail that had grown faint with time. I marked the locations on the rough map I'd drawn, noting patterns. The sorcerer was moving in a spiral, gradually working his way inward, toward the heart of the forest, toward whatever Lucian was so desperate to keep protected. Find anything interesting? I spun, bow half-drawn before I recognized Lucian's voice. He leaned against a tree about 20 feet away, arms crossed, that same scowl on his face. But his eyes held a spark of something that might have been curiosity. You know, most people announce their presence before speaking, I said, lowering my weapon. It's generally considered polite. Most people don't spend their mornings tracking down dark sorcerers in enchanted forests. I couldn't argue with that. How long have you been following me? I haven't been following you. I've been observing. There's a difference. Is there? I turned back to the tree I'd been examining, where signs of magical corruption had caused the bark to blacken. Because from my perspective, both involve you watching me without permission. You're in my forest. Everything you do here is with my implicit observation. I glanced back at him. That's a bit creepy, you know. To my surprise, he looked slightly uncomfortable. It's not. I'm not. He stopped, seeming to gather himself. The forest and I are connected. I sense what happens within it. It's not the same as actively watching someone. If you say so. I ran my fingers over the blackened bark. Kariz was here. Recently. Within the last few days. Lucian's demeanor shifted immediately, the casual annoyance replaced by sharp focus. He moved forward, examining the tree himself. How can you tell? See the way the corruption spreads? It's still active. Older traces would have been absorbed back into the forest by now, or at least begun to fade. I pointed to similar marks on neighboring trees. He's been here multiple times, actually. This is some kind of ritual site. Lucian's jaw tightened. Show me the others. We spent the next hour moving through the grove while I pointed out the signs I'd found. To his credit, Lucian didn't dismiss my observations. Instead, he listened intently, occasionally adding his own insights about the magical aspects I couldn't fully perceive. He's building anchors, Lucian said finally, his voice grim. Points of corruption that will let him channel more power. Anchors for what? He hesitated, and I could see him weighing how much to reveal. The heart of the forest contains something valuable. Something that would give someone like Kariz tremendous power if he could access it. And you're protecting it. It's my duty. His eyes met mine. Which is why you need to leave. If Kariz is this close, it means he's preparing for something. You're not equipped to face what's coming. The reasonable part of me knew he was right. I was a hunter, not a sorcerer. Magic beyond simple charms and wards was outside my expertise. But the stubborn part, the part that had convinced Menel to train me when everyone said women couldn't be battle hunters, the part that had climbed the ranks through sheer determination, refused to back down. Then help me, I said. You know this forest. You understand magic. Work with me instead of against me. No. Why not? You clearly care about stopping Kariz. I have the authority to bring him to justice. Together we'd have a better chance then. No, he repeated more firmly. You don't understand what you're asking. I can't leave the forest. I'm bound here, tied to it by magic that predates your kingdom, and I won't risk exposing the heart to someone who might. My what? Betray you? I gave you my word. Your word, he said softly, given after knowing me for all of 10 minutes. Why should I trust that? It was a fair question, though it stung more than I wanted to admit. Because I'm asking you to. Because trust has to start somewhere. And because whether you help me or not, I'm going to keep searching for Carice. At least if we work together, you can keep an eye on what I'm doing. He studied me for a long moment, and I got the impression he was seeing more than just my face, like he could somehow read the truth of my intentions. Finally, he sighed. If I agree to this, and I'm not saying I am, there would be conditions. Such as, you follow my lead in matters of magic. You don't go anywhere without me knowing. And you accept that the heart of the forest remains off limits, no matter what. I considered this. The restrictions chafed, but they were reasonable given the circumstances. And in exchange, I'll help you track Carice. And I'll teach you enough about magic to recognize his more subtle workings. It wasn't quite the partnership I'd envisioned, but it was better than working at cross purposes. I held out my hand. Deal. He looked at my extended hand like it might bite him. Then slowly he grasped it. His palm was warm, calloused in unexpected places, not the soft hands of a scholar but of someone who worked with them. Magic tingled where our skin met, making me shiver. Your tolerance for magic is higher than most, he observed, releasing my hand. Have you trained with sorcerers before? Only briefly at court. Menel thought I should understand the basics. I flexed my fingers, still feeling the lingering warmth. Though nothing like what I've felt here. The forest amplifies natural magic. It's part of what makes it so dangerous for someone like Carice, and what makes it so essential that he never reached the heart. What exactly is at the heart? I asked. You keep mentioning it, but that, he said firmly, is not part of our agreement. Some secrets must remain. I wanted to push, but the stubborn set of his jaw told me I'd get nowhere. Fine. Keep your secrets. For now. For now, he echoed, and something in his tone suggested he found my determination more amusing than annoying. We continued searching through the afternoon, falling into an easier rhythm than I'd expected. Lucian's knowledge of the forest was encyclopedic. He knew every tree, every stream, every hidden hollow. And despite his gruff exterior, he was a patient teacher when it came to explaining magical theory. You're better at this than you let on, I said as we examined another corrupted site. The teaching part, I mean. He shrugged. A long time ago, I worked with apprentices. Before I became the guardian. What happened? How does someone become a forest guardian anyway? His expression shuddered immediately. That's not relevant to our task. Right. More secrets. Everyone has secrets, Hunter. My name is Aveline, I reminded him. And yes, everyone has secrets. But usually people share at least basic information when they're working together. Like where they're from, or how they ended up with a magical forest bond. Where I'm from doesn't matter anymore. And the how of my bond is complicated. Try me. I'm pretty good with complicated. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then I made a choice. A sacrifice. And now I'm here, bound to this forest for as long as it needs me. There was pain in those words, old and deep. I wanted to press for more, but something in his posture warned me off. That sounds lonely, I said instead. It is what it is. He stood abruptly. We should make camp. It's getting dark, and we've covered enough ground for today. I didn't argue, though I noted that we had somehow become part of his vocabulary. Progress in its own way. That night, we made camp together. Him on one side of the fire, me on the other. The silence stretched between us. Not quite comfortable, but not hostile either. More like two people who didn't know what to say but weren't opposed to finding out. You asked earlier why I don't want to work with warriors, Lucian said eventually. The truth is, I've seen what happens when people treat magic as just another weapon to be wielded. It corrupts. Changes them. Carice is proof of that. You knew him, I guessed. Before. Yes. He was brilliant. Idealistic, even. But something changed. He became obsessed with power, with pushing beyond natural limits. Lucian stared into the fire. I tried to stop him, but I was already bound to the forest. All I could do was watch as he fell further into darkness. That must have been hard. It was necessary. I learned a long time ago that personal feelings can't interfere with duty. I thought about Menel's lessons, about all the times I'd had to make difficult choices in service of the kingdom. I understand that. But it doesn't make it easier. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something shifted in his expression. No, he agreed quietly. It doesn't. We fell silent again, but this time the quiet felt different. Less like two strangers forced together, and more like two people beginning to see each other clearly. As I settled into my bedroll, I found myself thinking that maybe, just maybe, I'd been wrong about Lucian. Beneath the scowl and the gruffness was someone who cared deeply about his responsibilities. Someone who'd made sacrifices I couldn't fully comprehend. Someone who, for all his prickly demeanor, was beginning to feel less like an obstacle and more like an ally. Maybe even something more, though I pushed that thought away as quickly as it came. I was here for a mission, nothing else. Whatever strange pull I felt toward the forest guardian was just proximity and circumstance. Nothing more.
Chapter 4. Lucian. I'd made a mistake agreeing to work with her. That fact became clearer with each passing hour as Aveline proved herself to be not just competent, but exceptional. She read the forest like others read books, catching details I'd have missed without my magical senses. More troubling, she'd begun reading me just as effectively. "You're doing it again," she said on our third day together, not looking up from the corrupted vine she was examining. "Doing what?" "Glowering. You've been glowering for the past hour." I wasn't glowering. I was thinking. The fact that my thinking apparently looked like glowering was irrelevant. "I don't glower," I muttered. "You absolutely glower. It's practically your default expression." She glanced up with a grin that made something in my chest tighten uncomfortably. "Right now, for instance, textbook glower." I'm concerned. Cariza's anchors are getting stronger, which means he's preparing for something major. That warrants concern, not levity. It can warrant both. She stood, brushing dirt from her knees. Menel taught me that if you can't find moments of lightness even in darkness, the darkness wins. Life's too short to spend it all scowling. Some of us don't have the luxury of choosing our expressions. Everyone has that luxury. You just choose to be grumpy. I'm not grumpy. She laughed, actually laughed, and the sound echoed through the forest like bells. That's exactly what a grumpy person would say. Own it, Lucian. You're grumpy, stubborn, and entirely too serious. It's practically your defining characteristic. Before I could formulate a response that wasn't just more denial, she'd already moved on to the next tree, leaving me to follow with my dignity in tatters. The infuriating part was that she was right. I had become grumpy. Years alone with only the forest for company had worn away my social graces until all that remained was duty and determination. But Aveline's presence was beginning to polish those rough edges, revealing glimpses of who I'd been before. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. "Tell me about your mentor," I said, partly to change the subject and partly because I'd grown genuinely curious. "This Menel. He trained you as a battle hunter?" "Best decision he ever made, according to him." Her voice held warm affection. Though his wife thought he was mad at first. Women weren't supposed to be hunters. Too delicate, they said. Not strong enough. Obviously they were wrong. Obviously. She ran her hand along a tree trunk, checking for corruption. Menel saw past the stupid prejudices. Saw that I had talent and determination. He trained me harder than any of his male students, said I'd have to be twice as good to get half the recognition. And you succeeded. Eventually. After a lot of bruises, broken ribs, and one very embarrassing incident involving a tree and my own arrow. She caught my questioning look. "I don't want to talk about it." Despite myself, I smiled. "Now I definitely want to hear about it." "Absolutely not. It's classified information." "I don't think that's how classification works." "It is in my personal system of embarrassment management." She paused at a stream, kneeling to examine the water. "Lucian, look at this." I moved beside her, my trained senses immediately picking up what she'd noticed. The water ran clear, but beneath the surface, dark tendrils of corruption twisted like smoke. "He's poisoning the water sources," I said grimly. "Which means he's not just trying to reach the heart anymore. He's trying to weaken the forest itself." She looked up at me, green eyes sharp with understanding. "Making it easier to break through your defenses." Yes. The word tasted bitter. I'd been so focused on protecting the heart directly that I'd underestimated Cariza's tactical thinking. "He knows I can't be everywhere at once. But two of us can cover more ground than one." She stood, already moving with purpose. "We need to find all the corruption points, map them, see if there's a pattern to what he's doing. That could take days." Then we'd better get started. We worked through the day and into the evening, documenting every site of corruption we could find. The pattern that emerged was troubling. Kariz wasn't just poisoning random sources. He was targeting specific points that, connected, formed a symbol I recognized with cold dread. It's a binding circle, I told Aveline as we studied the map she'd drawn. Inverted. Instead of containing something, it's designed to break containment. The wards around the heart. Yes. And if he completes it? He won't. Her jaw set with determination. We'll stop him first. That we again. Somewhere over the past few days, we'd become a team without either of us quite noticing. I should have been concerned about that, about letting someone breach the walls I'd built around myself. Instead, I found it comforting. Dangerous but comforting. There are 2 more points he needs, I said, pointing to gaps in the pattern. Here and here. If we can anticipate where he'll strike next, we can set a trap. Our eyes met, and I saw the same fierce determination in hers that burned in my chest. We were going to catch him. Together. We should rest, I said, though I was reluctant to stop. We'll need our strength for what comes next. She nodded, and we made camp near the stream. Aveline set about preparing a meal with practiced efficiency while I reinforced the protective wards around our site. It was almost domestic, this easy division of labor. Can I ask you something? She said as we ate. You can ask. I make no promises about answering. Fair. She was quiet for a moment, choosing her words. Why did you really let me stay? And don't say it was just the compromise. You could have forced me out that first night. Why didn't you? I should have deflected. Should have given her some vague answer about duty and forest protection. Instead, I found myself telling the truth. Because you reminded me that there's a world beyond these trees. People worth protecting. For too long, I've been so focused on my duty that I forgot why it mattered. I met her gaze. You reminded me. She was quiet, and I worried I'd said too much. Revealed too much. Then she smiled, not her usual playful grin, but something softer. More genuine. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me in a long time. Don't let it go to your head. Too late. I'm absolutely going to hold this over you whenever you get particularly grumpy. And just like that, the moment shifted back to easier ground. But something had changed between us. Some line had been crossed that I hadn't even noticed we were approaching. Later, as Aveline slept and I kept watch, I found myself studying her face in the firelight. She was beautiful, yes, but that wasn't what drew me. It was her spirit, that unshakable determination mixed with genuine kindness. The way she found humor in darkness. The way she'd looked at me not as the forest guardian or some mysterious figure, but as simply Lucian. You're falling for her, the forest observed, its voice barely a whisper. I'm not, I protested, though the words felt hollow. You are. I can feel it through our bond, the way your magic responds to her presence. The way you're happier than you've been in years. That's irrelevant. Once we stop Kariz, she'll return to her kingdom. I'll remain here. That's how it has to be. Does it? I didn't answer. Because the truth, the terrifying truth I'd been avoiding, was that I'd started imagining what it might be like if she stayed. If this partnership we built could become something more permanent. But that was impossible. I was bound to the forest, and she had duties beyond these trees. We existed in different worlds, and no amount of wanting could change that. Could it?
Chapter 5. Aveline. Something had shifted between Lucian and me, and I wasn't quite sure what to do about it. It wasn't just the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, or how our hands had started brushing more frequently as we worked. It was deeper than that, a connection that went beyond simple attraction, though that was certainly present too. On our 5th day together, we finally located the next site where Kariz would need to place his anchor. A clearing in the northern meadows, positioned exactly where Lucian's map had predicted. We should prepare the trap, Lucian said, already moving to set protective wards. If he comes tonight. When he comes, I corrected. We've disrupted his other sites. He'll know time is running out. Confident. Realistic. I've tracked enough prey to know when they're getting desperate. I checked my weapons, ensuring everything was ready. The question is whether he'll come alone. Lucian's expression darkened. He won't. Kariz was always cunning. He'll have some defense, some contingency. Then we'll handle it together. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something vulnerable in his eyes. Aveline, if this goes wrong. It won't. But if it does, I need you to promise me something. Don't try to be a hero. If you're in danger, run. The forest will protect you as long as you're moving toward the edge. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not asking you to abandon me. I'm asking you to survive. His hand found mine, gripping it tightly. Please. The intensity in his voice made my chest ache. Why does it matter so much? Because it does. He released my hand, turning away. Just promise me. I promise, I said softly, though I had no intention of keeping that promise if it meant leaving him to face Carice alone. We spent the afternoon preparing. Lucian wove intricate magical wards while I positioned myself in a hidden spot with a clear line of sight to the clearing. The plan was simple. Let Carice begin his ritual, then strike when he was vulnerable. As twilight descended, Lucian took his position on the opposite side of the clearing. Even from a distance, I could feel his magic humming through the air, ready to spring the trap. Then we waited. The forest grew quiet in that particular way that meant predators were near. My heart beat steadily, the familiar pre-battle calm settling over me. I'd done this dozens of times. Tracked dangerous people, set traps, made arrests. This was just another mission. Except it wasn't. Because this time, I wasn't just thinking about duty or justice. I was thinking about the man across the clearing, about protecting him as much as completing my mission. When had that happened? When had Lucian become more important than the task itself? Movement at the edge of the clearing snapped my attention back. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, thin, with wild gray hair and robes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Carice. But he wasn't alone. Behind him came 3 shambling figures, their movements jerky and unnatural. Corpses, I realized with horror. He'd animated corpses to serve as guards. Lucian's sharp intake of breath told me he'd seen them too. This complicated things significantly. Carice moved to the center of the clearing, pulling out a crystalline focus that pulsed with dark energy. He began chanting in a language I didn't recognize, and the air itself seemed to thicken with malevolent power. I waited for Lucian's signal, watching as Carice's ritual built in intensity. The corrupted magic spread from the crystal like ink in water, seeping into the ground. No. Lucian's voice echoed in my mind, startling me. I didn't know he could do that. I stood, arrow already knocked and flying before Carice could react. It struck his hand, sending the crystal spinning away. His scream of rage echoed through the clearing as the undead guards lurched toward me. Lucian emerged from concealment, hands blazing with silver magic. He sent one of the corpses flying backward with a gesture, its body crumpling against a tree. But the other 2 kept coming, driven by Carice's will. I dropped my bow and drew my blades, meeting the first undead head-on. Fighting something that didn't feel pain was different from fighting a living opponent. I had to destroy its ability to move rather than simply wound it. My dagger found the spine at its neck, and it dropped. But the second was already upon me, dead hands grasping for my throat. Then Lucian was there, magic wrapping around the creature and pulling it away from me. The crystal, he shouted. Destroy it. I spotted where it had fallen, near the edge of the clearing, but Carice had seen it too, and we raced toward it. He was faster, snatching it up and leveling it at me. Dark energy gathered at its tip. Aveline. I dove aside as black lightning scorched the ground where I'd been standing. Rolled to my feet, closing the distance. Carice tried to aim again, but I was already inside his guard, my knife slashing across his wrist. The crystal fell again. This time, I brought my boot down on it with all my strength. It shattered with a sound like breaking glass and screaming wind. The corrupted magic exploded outward, sending both Carice and me flying backward. I hit the ground hard, breath knocked from my lungs. Through blurred vision, I saw Lucian binding Carice with glowing silver chains that emerged from the earth itself. The sorcerer struggled, but Lucian's magic held firm. It's over, Lucian said, his voice cold and final. Your anchors are destroyed. Your corruption ends here. Carice laughed, a brittle, broken sound. Fool, did you really think this was about the forest's heart? That was never the goal. Then what? Revenge. Carice's eyes fixed on Lucian with pure hatred. You were supposed to stand with me, to help me reshape this world into something better. But you chose this prison instead. So I wanted you to watch as I destroyed everything you'd sworn to protect. I chose duty over ambition, Lucian said quietly. I chose to protect rather than consume. That's what you could never understand. I pushed myself to my feet, retrieving the silver dagger Menel had given me. It was specially forged to suppress magical abilities, perfect for restraining a sorcerer. "By the authority of Lord Jude, you're under arrest," I said, pressing the blade against Carise's throat. The runes along its edge began to glow, and I felt his magic dampen. "You'll face justice for your crimes." Carise's expression twisted with rage, but he was powerless now, caught between Lucian's binding and my blade. We'd done it. Against the odds, we'd actually done it.
Chapter 6. Lucian. The journey back to the kingdom took 3 days. 3 days of watching Aveline prepare to leave my forest, and my life, forever. Carise remained bound and silent, the silver dagger's magic keeping him powerless. I could have maintained the binding myself, but Aveline had insisted on taking responsibility for the prisoner. It was her duty, she'd said, her mission. I was starting to hate that word, duty. "You're quiet," she observed on the second evening as we made camp at the forest's edge. Tomorrow we'd reach the kingdom proper and everything would change. Just thinking. About how empty the forest would feel once she was gone. About how I'd grown accustomed to her laughter, her teasing, the way she challenged me at every turn. About how much I wanted to ask her to stay but had no right to. "About what comes next," I said instead. She was quiet for a moment, studying me with those perceptive green eyes. "Lucian, I've been thinking too. About the forest." "About? Don't." The word came out sharper than I'd intended. "Don't make this harder than it already is." "Harder? What's hard about it?" "Everything. Every moment I spent with her made it harder to imagine going back to my solitary existence. Every smile, every touch, every shared victory had wound itself around my heart until I couldn't tell where my feelings ended and my duty began." "You have a life outside this forest," I said. "Important work, people who depend on you. I won't ask you to give that up." "What if I want to give it up?" My heart stopped. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" She moved closer and I forced myself not to retreat. "Lucian, these past days with you have been, I've never felt anything like this. Like I found something I didn't even know I was looking for." "It's the forest," I said desperately. "The magic here affects people, makes them feel things that aren't real." "That's not true and you know it." Her hand found mine. "What I feel for you has nothing to do with magic and everything to do with who you are. The man who protects an entire forest alone. Who makes terrible jokes when he thinks I'm not listening. Who looks at me like I'm the most frustrating and fascinating person he's ever met." "You are," I admitted. "Both of those things. But Aveline, I'm bound here. I can't leave, can't give you the life you deserve. All I can offer is an existence in isolation, cut off from everything you know." "What if that's exactly what I want?" "You say that now, but in a year? 5 years? You'd grow to resent this place. Resent me." She pulled her hand away and I felt the loss like a physical ache. "You're afraid." "I'm realistic." "You're afraid," she repeated, more gently this time. "Afraid that if you let yourself care about someone, they'll leave. Like everyone else in your life left when you became the guardian." Her words struck too close to truth. "That's not." "It is. I can see it in your eyes every time we get close. You pull away because you're terrified of being abandoned again." She cupped my face in her hands, forcing me to meet her gaze. "But I'm not them, Lucian. I'm not going to disappear just because things get difficult. You don't know what you're asking for." "Then tell me. Explain it to me instead of making decisions for both of us." I pulled away from her touch, unable to think clearly when she was so close. "When I became the guardian, everyone I knew forgot me. As part of the binding, the forest becomes your only tie to the world. My family, my friends, my former apprentices, they all continued on as if I'd never existed. I've been alone for over a decade, Aveline. I've forgotten how to be anything else. So learn again. With me. And if I fail? If I hurt you because I don't know how to do this anymore? Then we'll figure it out together." She smiled, that bright, determined smile that had first caught my attention. "I'm not fragile, Lucian. I won't break just because you're not perfect at relationships." "This is madness." "Probably. But I've found that the best things in life usually are." I stared at her, this impossible woman who'd crashed into my forest and my life with equal lack of permission, who saw through every wall I'd built and refused to accept my self-imposed exile, who was offering me something I'd thought lost forever: connection, partnership, love. "I don't want you to go," I said finally, the admission feeling like surrender and victory all at once. "Then ask me to stay." "I can't. You have responsibilities. A duty to Jude and the kingdom." "I have responsibilities here too. To you. To us." She took a step closer. And as for Jude, I think we can work something out. If you're willing to try. What do you mean? Come with me tomorrow. Meet with Jude. We'll deliver Carice together and then we'll talk about the future. No decisions yet, just possibilities. It was the compromise I hadn't known I needed. A chance to see if the connection between us could survive outside the forest's boundaries. A way forward that didn't require either of us to sacrifice everything. I haven't left the forest in over 10 years, I said quietly. I'll be with you. Every step. I looked into her eyes and saw only certainty. No doubt, no hesitation. Just fierce, unwavering determination. All right, I said. We'll go together. Her smile could have lit the entire forest. You won't regret this. I already regret it, but I'm doing it anyway. She laughed and pulled me into a kiss that sent electricity racing through my veins. It was nothing like the carefully controlled magic I wielded. This was wild, unpredictable, alive. This was Aveline and she was choosing me. When we finally pulled apart, both breathless, she rested her forehead against mine. For the record, you're a terrible kisser. What? I am not. Just seeing if you were paying attention. Her grin was wicked. You're actually quite good at it. We should practice more. For research purposes. Research purposes. Absolutely. Very important research. I kissed her again just to stop her from talking, and felt her smile against my lips. For the first time in longer than I could remember, the future didn't feel like an endless repetition of solitary duty. It felt like possibility.
Chapter 7. Aveline. Crossing the boundary of the forest with Lucian beside me felt surreal. I'd expected some dramatic reaction. The binding breaking, him collapsing something. Instead, he simply paused at the edge of the trees, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the road beyond. How does it feel? I asked. Strange. Wrong almost. Like I'm missing a limb. He glanced back at the forest, and I saw the connection between them like a silver thread stretching taut, but not unbearable. Can you go back? Yes. The binding doesn't prevent me from leaving, just compels me to stay. As long as I don't stray too far for too long, I'll be fine. He looked at me. The forest understands. It knows this is important. Carice, bound and gagged in our makeshift prisoner transport, made a muffled sound that might have been laughter. I ignored him. The capital appeared on the horizon by midday. White towers rising against blue sky, flags snapping in the wind. My home for the past decade, yet seeing it now felt different. Like I was viewing it through Lucian's eyes, seeing both its beauty and its limitations. Impressive, Lucian murmured. Wait until you meet Jude. He's even more impressive. I guided us toward the palace gates, where guards immediately recognized me. Lady Aveline, you've returned. The captain of the guard looked at our party with curiosity. Me, a strange man in forest robes, and a bound prisoner. Is this the rogue sorcerer? It is. I need to see Lord Jude immediately, and send word to Menel that I'm back. The palace was as I remembered, all polished marble and elegant tapestries. But Lucian looked overwhelmed by it all, his eyes darting to take in the crowds, the noise, the sheer press of humanity after years of solitude. I took his hand, squeezing gently. You're doing fine. There are so many people. I know. It'll get easier. Jude received us in his private council chamber, and I was relieved to see Menel already there. My mentor's weathered face broke into a smile when he saw me. Aveline, thank the gods you're safe. His eyes moved to Lucian, then to Carice, and understanding dawned. You did it. We did it, I corrected. Jude, Menel, this is Lucian, guardian of the Thornwood Forest. He was instrumental in capturing Carice. Jude was a man in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded respect without demanding it. He studied Lucian with keen intelligence. Guardian of Thornwood. I've heard legends, though I confess I thought them mere stories. He turned to Carice. And you, old friend, what drove you to this? Carice said nothing, glaring at all of us with undisguised hatred. He wanted revenge, Lucian said quietly. Against me specifically. The attacks on your kingdom were meant to draw me out, to force me to watch as he destroyed what I'd sworn to protect. A personal vendetta that cost innocent lives. Jude's expression hardened. You'll face trial, Carice, and justice for your crimes. Guards came to take Carice away, leaving the four of us alone. Menel moved to my side, studying me with those perceptive eyes that had always seen too much. You look different, he observed. I've been living in a forest for 2 weeks. Of course I look different. That's not what I mean. His gaze flicked to Lucian. You found more than just the rogue sorcerer. He crept up my cheeks. Menel. It's all right. He smiled. I'm glad. You've always thrown yourself into duty so completely that I worried you'd forget to live. But I see that's changed. Jude had been watching this exchange with interest. Lucian, I owe you a debt of gratitude. Your assistance in stopping Carice likely saved countless lives. I was protecting my forest, Lucian said. But you're welcome. Still, I'd like to offer you a position as advisor on magical matters, if you're willing. Your knowledge would be invaluable, and the kingdom has been without a trustworthy sorcerer since Carice's betrayal. I saw Lucian tense, saw the instinctive refusal forming. Before he could speak, I jumped in. Actually, Jude, there's something we'd like to discuss. A proposal of sorts. Menel's eyebrows rose. This should be interesting. I outlined our idea. Lucian would remain primarily in the forest, maintaining his role as guardian. But he'd also serve as a liaison between the kingdom and the magical world, advising when needed. And I would join him, serving as a ranger and protector of the Thornwood, watching for threats while helping maintain the peace between civilization and the wild places. You want to leave the capital, Jude said. It wasn't a question. Not leave entirely. But yes, make the forest my primary home. I met his eyes. I know this isn't what you expected when you sent me on this mission. No, Jude interrupted. But it may be better than what I expected. The Thornwood has long been a mystery, a place we couldn't properly protect or patrol. Having someone I trust there, working with its guardian, could prevent future threats before they escalate. Menel nodded slowly. It's a good plan, though I'll miss having you nearby, Aveline. You could visit, I suggested. Once we're settled. I might just do that. Someone needs to make sure this guardian is treating my protege properly. Menel's eyes sparkled with mischief as he looked at Lucian. And you, young man, are your intentions toward Aveline honorable? Lucian looked startled. Yes, of course. Good. Because if you hurt her, forest guardian or not, you'll answer to me. Menel. I protested, mortified. But Lucian was smiling. A real, genuine smile that transformed his usually stern features. Understood. Though I should warn you, she's far more likely to hurt me than the other way around. That's probably true, Menel agreed, and the tension in the room dissolved into laughter. Jude made it official with typical efficiency. I would retain my title and standing but serve as Thornwood Ranger, responsible for protecting both the forest and the kingdom's interests. Lucian would be named official guardian. His position recognized and respected rather than feared or dismissed as legend. There is one condition, Jude added. I'll need you both to report here quarterly. Council meetings, updates on the forest status, that sort of thing. Consider it maintaining the connection between your world and ours. We can do that, I agreed, glancing at Lucian for confirmation. He nodded. Thank you. For understanding. For trusting. Thank Aveline. She's earned that trust many times over. Jude stood, signaling the meeting's end. Welcome to my service, Guardian. I suspect this is the beginning of a valuable partnership. As we left the council chamber, Menel pulled me aside. Are you certain about this? It's a big change. I'm certain. More certain than I've been about anything in a long time. I looked to where Lucian waited, trying to look patient and failing. He needs someone, Menel. And I think maybe I need him too. Then go. Be happy. And remember, you always have a home here if you need it. I hugged him tightly. Thank you. For everything. That's what mentors are for. Now go. Your grumpy sorcerer is looking particularly lost without you. That night, Lucian and I stayed at an inn near the palace. After weeks of sleeping on the ground, the soft bed felt strange. Are you all right? I asked as we lay in the darkness. Yes. Just adjusting. He was quiet for a moment. Thank you. For what? For seeing a way forward when all I could see were obstacles. For fighting for us when I was too afraid to fight for myself. I turned to face him, barely able to make out his features in the dim light. I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. I know. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. I'm starting to believe it. Good. Because tomorrow we go home. Home, he repeated, testing the word. Then softer, yes, home. We fell asleep like that, hands joined, two people who'd found each other against all odds and refused to let go.
Chapter 8. Lucian. Returning to the forest felt like exhaling after holding my breath for days. The moment we crossed back into the trees, I felt the connection surge back to full strength. But this time, instead of it being my only anchor, it was simply one of many. Aveline walked beside me, laughing as vines reached down to welcome us back, as birds called out greetings. The forest likes you, I observed. The feeling is mutual. She ran her hand along a tree trunk, and I felt the forest's pleased response through our bond. Though we need to do something about accommodations. I love sleeping under the stars, but it would be nice to have actual walls occasionally. There is something I should show you. I led her deeper into the forest, to a place I'd never shown anyone before. A grove where the trees grew in a perfect circle, their branches forming a natural canopy overhead. And in the center, built into the largest oak, was a home. It had been here when I'd become guardian, ancient, grown rather than built. Rooms carved from living wood, windows that opened onto branches, stairs that spiraled up and down through the tree's massive trunk. Magic had shaped it, made it comfortable and weatherproof despite being entirely organic. Lucian, Aveline breathed, this is incredible. It's been empty for a long time. I've been using it more as storage than living space. I felt suddenly self-conscious. But with some work we could make it into a proper home. If you want it. I mean, you don't have to live here exactly, we could build something separate. She kissed me, effectively ending my rambling. It's perfect, we'll make it ours. Over the following weeks we did exactly that. Aveline brought her personal belongings from the capital, and we merged our lives with surprising ease. She taught me to cook properly. Years alone had left me with absolutely terrible survival skills in that regard. I taught her more advanced magical theory, watching with pride as she absorbed knowledge like a sponge. We fell into a rhythm. Days spent patrolling the forest, ensuring no new corruption took root. Evenings by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. Nights wrapped in each other's arms, learning the language of touch and trust. I have a confession, Aveline said one evening as we sat on a high branch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Should I be concerned? Maybe, she grinned. That first night when you tried to intimidate me into leaving, I thought you were the most insufferable person I'd ever met. I was trying to protect you. I know that now. But at the time I wanted to shoot you just a little bit. Only a little bit? Well, you were very attractive even while being insufferable. It was confusing. I laughed, pulling her closer. For what it's worth, I thought you were absolutely insane. Who argues with a forest guardian? Someone who recognized a grumpy man hiding behind threats. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm glad I stayed. So am I. We sat in comfortable silence, watching darkness creep through the trees. The forest hummed contentedly around us, its magic intertwining with our own contentment. Lucian, Aveline said softly. I love you. The word struck me with unexpected force. I'd known, of course, had felt it in every touch, every smile, every moment we'd shared. But hearing her say it made it real in a way nothing else had. I love you too, I said, the words easier than I'd expected. More than I thought I could love anything. You've given me back something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Hope. Purpose beyond mere duty. The belief that life can be more than just existing from one day to the next. She turned to kiss me, soft and sweet. We're going to have a good life here, you and I. Yes, I agreed. We are.
We hope you are enjoying our audiobook. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Chapter 9. Aveline. Our first quarterly report to Jude came too quickly. I'd grown so comfortable in the forest that the thought of leaving, even temporarily, felt wrong. But Lucian and I had made a promise, and we kept our promises. Jude welcomed us warmly, Menel at his side as always. We reported on the forest's status, on the cleanup of Cariza's corruption sites, on the new balance we'd struck between the wild and civilized worlds. You look happy, Menel observed during a private moment. Both of you. We are, I confirmed. It's been a perfect, actually. Better than I'd hoped. Good. You deserve happiness, Aveline. He squeezed my shoulder. Though I have to admit, when I told you to trust your instincts, I didn't expect those instincts to lead you to romance with a forest guardian. Life is full of surprises. Indeed it is. Lucian had been nervous about the trip, but he'd handled it well. The capital was less overwhelming this time, the crowds more manageable. And watching him interact with Jude's council, sharing insights about magic and the natural world, I felt a surge of pride. He was extraordinary, and somehow, impossibly, he was mine. After the formal meetings concluded, Jude invited us to a private dinner. "I wanted to discuss something with you both," he said as wine was poured. "Carice's trial is scheduled for next month. I'd like you to testify if you're willing." Of course, I said immediately. Lucian nodded. "Whatever you need. There's more." Jude leaned forward. During his imprisonment, Carice has been talkative. Apparently, isolation doesn't agree with him. He's revealed information about other rogue elements, potential threats we weren't aware of. "You want us to investigate," I guessed. "Eventually. Not immediately, I know you're still settling into your new roles. But in the future, having a team capable of handling magical threats would be invaluable." He smiled. "Consider it job security." Lucian and I exchanged glances. The idea of more adventures together, more chances to protect both the forest and the kingdom, held definite appeal. "We'll consider it," Lucian said carefully. "Though the forest must remain our priority." "Of course. I wouldn't have it any other way." Jude raised his glass. "To new partnerships and unexpected friendships." We toasted, and I felt the weight of the future settling comfortably on my shoulders. This was right. This balance between duty and love, between the wild and the civilized, between who I'd been and who I was becoming. That night, as we prepared to return to the forest, Menel found us in the palace gardens. "Walk with me," he said, and I fell into step beside him while Lucian gave us privacy. "He's good for you," Menel said without preamble. "I see strength in you that wasn't there before. Not physical strength, you've always had that. But a centeredness. A peace. He is good for me. And I hope I'm good for him too." "You are?" "I've watched the way he looks at you. Like you hung the moon." Menel chuckled. "Though he still needs to work on that permanent scowl. I'm wearing him down. Last week he actually laughed at one of my jokes." "Miracles do happen." Menel stopped walking, turning to face me. "Aveline, I know I've said this before, but I'm proud of you. Not just for capturing Carice or for the work you're doing now. I'm proud of the woman you've become. The choices you've made. The life you're building." Tears stung my eyes. "Thank you. For everything. For believing in me when no one else did. For training me. For being family when I had none. You'll always have family in me. And now you have Lucian too." He smiled. "Take care of each other. And don't be a stranger. I expect regular visits. I promise." We embraced, and I felt the chapter of my life as a solitary hunter closing. A new chapter was beginning, one filled with partnership and possibility.
Chapter 10. Lucian. 1 year after Aveline first crashed into my forest, I found myself standing in the same clearing where we'd fought Carice. But this time the corrupted ground had healed. Green grass grew where dark magic had once poisoned the earth. Flowers bloomed, birds sang, and the forest thrummed with healthy magic. "It's beautiful," Aveline said, appearing beside me. "Hard to believe how different it looked a year ago. You've been instrumental in that healing. The forest has never been stronger." She laughed. "I think the forest would manage just fine without me. But I appreciate the compliment." "I'm serious." I turned to face her. "Before you came, I was just surviving, maintaining. But you've brought life back, not just to the forest but to me. You've made me remember what it means to truly live." Her expression softened. "Lucian, are you getting sentimental on me?" "Perhaps. Is that a problem?" "Not at all. I quite like sentimental Lucian. Though grumpy Lucian has his charms too." I reached into my pocket, fingers closing around the small wooden box I'd spent weeks crafting. It had been years since I'd shaped wood with magic, pouring intention into every grain and curve. "I have something for you," I said, suddenly more nervous than I'd been facing down Carice. "Is this where you finally give me that better bow you keep promising?" "Not exactly." I opened the box, revealing the ring inside. I'd grown it from a living branch, shaping the wood into an elegant band inlaid with forest emerald, a stone formed from concentrated natural magic. "Aveline, this past year has been the best of my life. You've given me everything I thought I'd lost: companionship, purpose, love. And I don't want to imagine a future without you in it." Her eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Lucian, I know we're already building a life together, that we're already partners in every way that matters. but I want to make it official. I want to stand before Jude and Menel and everyone and declare that you're mine and I'm yours." I took a breath. "Will you marry me?" For a moment she just stared at the ring and panic began to set in. Had I misread things? Moved too fast? Then she looked up and tears were streaming down her face. "Yes. Yes, you absolute fool, of course I'll marry you." She threw her arms around me, nearly knocking us both over. "I thought you'd never ask." "You did. I've been waiting for months. I even asked Menel if it was normal for forest guardians to be this slow with proposals." "You asked Menel?" "He said to give you time. That you'd been alone so long you needed to be sure." She pulled back, grinning through her tears. "Were you sure?" "I was sure the moment you refused to leave my forest despite all my threats." I slipped the ring onto her finger, watching as the wood seemed to come alive, adjusting to fit perfectly. The forest magic recognized her, accepted her, claimed her as its own. "I love you, Aveline. My stubborn, brilliant, impossibly brave hunter. I love you too, my grumpy, powerful, secretly sentimental guardian." We kissed as the forest erupted in celebration around us. Flowers blooming out of season, birds singing in harmony, trees rustling with joy. The magic that bound me to this place now included her, woven so tightly into my very being that I couldn't separate where my love for the forest ended and my love for Aveline began. "When should we tell Jude and Menel?" she asked, admiring the ring on her finger. "Immediately. Before Menel can claim he saw it coming." She laughed. "He absolutely saw it coming. He probably has bets running with the palace staff." "Then let's not keep him waiting." We traveled to the capital the next day, and Menel's reaction was exactly as predicted. "Finally," he exclaimed when we shared our news. "I've had money riding on this for months. Thank you for not making me wait any longer." "You bet on our engagement?" I asked, somewhere between amused and appalled. "I bet you'd propose before winter. Others thought spring." He grinned. "I know my former protégée well. She's been practically vibrating with anticipation." "I have not." "You asked me 3 times if I thought Lucian seemed ready for the next step. You weren't exactly subtle." Aveline's face turned red and I couldn't help but laugh. "I could have proposed sooner if I'd known I was making you wait." "No, the timing was perfect." She squeezed my hand. "Everything about this has been perfect." Jude, when he heard the news, was equally pleased. "I'll officiate the ceremony myself if you'd like. Consider it a wedding gift." "We'd be honored," I said. Plans took shape quickly. The wedding would be held in the forest, at the stone circle that served as my sanctum. A small affair, just Jude, Menel, and a handful of others. Aveline wanted nothing elaborate and I was grateful. Grand ceremonies in crowded halls would have felt wrong for us. This was right. The forest, the people who mattered most, and the promise of forever.
Chapter 11. Aveline. My wedding day dawned clear and bright, the forest seemingly determined to show off its finest aspects. I stood in our tree home, adjusting the simple dress I'd chosen. Forest green silk that moved like water, embroidered with silver thread in patterns that mimicked leaves and vines. Menel had insisted on walking me to the ceremony, playing the role of father I'd never had. "You look beautiful," he said when he arrived, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Don't cry. If you cry, I'll cry, and then I'll show up to my own wedding with a red nose." "Wouldn't want that." He offered his arm. "Ready? More than ready. I've been ready since the moment he asked." We walked through the forest, and I marveled at how the trees seemed to part before us, creating a perfect path to the stone circle. When we arrived, my breath caught. Lucian had transformed the ancient space into something magical. Vines heavy with white flowers wound through the stones, their sweet scent filling the air. Soft moss carpeted the ground, and floating orbs of light danced between the trees like captured stars. At the center of it all stood Lucian, wearing robes of deep blue that matched his eyes, his dark hair pulled back, his expression one of such open love that my heart nearly burst. Jude stood before him in formal robes, ready to officiate. A handful of trusted friends from the capital were scattered around the circle, but I barely noticed them. All I could see was Lucian. Menel guided me forward, placing my hand in Lucian's before stepping back. The guardian's fingers were warm, steady, and I felt the familiar tingle of magic where our skin touched. "Dearly beloved," Jude began, his voice carrying through the clearing. "We gather today in this sacred place to witness the union of 2 remarkable individuals. Lucian, guardian of the Thornwood, and Aveline, ranger and protector. Their love story is one of duty transformed by trust, of strength tempered by wisdom, and of two souls finding in each other what they didn't know they were missing. He spoke of honor and loyalty, of the courage it took to be vulnerable, of the power of choosing love even when circumstances made it difficult. His words painted the story of our journey together, from adversaries to allies to something far deeper. Lucian, Jude said. Your vows. Lucian cleared his throat, his eyes never leaving mine. Aveline, when you walked into my forest a year ago, I thought you were an inconvenience. A disruption to the careful order I'd built. I was wrong about many things back then, but mostly I was wrong about what I needed. I thought I needed solitude, distance, protection from the pain of connection. But you showed me that true strength comes from opening yourself to others, even when it's terrifying. You brought light back into my life, laughter into my days, and purpose beyond mere duty. I promise to stand beside you, to trust you with my fears as well as my triumphs, to protect what we've built together with everything I am. I promise to love you not just today, but every day the forest grants me breath. Tears streamed freely down my face now, and I didn't care who saw. Lucian, a year ago I came to this forest thinking I knew exactly what I was doing. I was wrong too. I thought I was just tracking a rogue sorcerer, completing another mission. But instead I found something I hadn't known I was searching for. A partner, a home, and a love that makes everything else make sense. You've taught me that duty and desire don't have to be enemies, that strength includes knowing when to be vulnerable, and that the best adventures are the ones we choose together. I promise to challenge you when you're being too stubborn, to support you when doubt creeps in, and to remind you that you're allowed to be happy. I promise to protect this forest with you, to build a life with you, and to love you with everything I am for as long as I live. Jude smiled. The rings, please. Menel stepped forward with a second ring. This one I'd crafted myself with Lucian's patient guidance. Mine was simpler than his elaborate creation, but I'd poured my heart into every detail. Silver band inlaid with a sliver of my silver dagger, melted down and reformed. A symbol of how I'd changed, how duty had transformed into something richer. We exchanged rings, sliding them onto each other's fingers as Jude pronounced us husband and wife. You may kiss your bride, he said, though Lucian was already pulling me close. The kiss was everything. Promise and passion, gentleness and fire, the culmination of a year's worth of stolen moments and the beginning of forever. The forest erupted around us in celebration, magic swirling through the air in visible streams of gold and green. The floating lights burst into showers of glowing petals, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the triumphant call of a hawk. When we finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning, the small gathering applauded. Menel was openly crying now, not even bothering to hide it. Congratulations, Jude said warmly, clasping first Lucian's shoulder, then mine. May your partnership be long and your love enduring. The celebration that followed was simple but perfect. Food and wine, music provided by traveling bards Menel had insisted on inviting, and laughter echoing through the trees. I watched Lucian slowly relax, saw him actually enjoying the presence of others in his forest, saw him becoming not just the guardian, but a person again. Thank you, he whispered to me during a quiet moment. For what? For not giving up on me. For seeing past the walls I'd built. For choosing this life when you could have had anything. This life is everything, I assured him. You are everything. As twilight fell and our guests began to depart, Menel pulled me aside one last time. You've done well for yourself, he said. Better than I ever imagined when I first took you as an apprentice. Because I married a powerful sorcerer? Because you found someone who sees your worth, who challenges you to be better, and who you can build something meaningful with. That's rarer and more valuable than any amount of power. He kissed my forehead. Be happy, Aveline. You've earned it. I will. We will. After everyone had gone, Lucian and I stood alone in the stone circle, the magical lights still floating around us like blessings. So I said, what does a married forest guardian do for a honeymoon? Whatever he wants with his wife. He pulled me close, and I felt his smile against my hair. Though I was thinking we might explore the eastern reaches. There are some remarkable caves there, and I've been meaning to check them for any residual corruption. You want to spend our honeymoon checking caves for magical corruption. It could be romantic. Caves can be romantic. I laughed. Only you would think that. But fine. Romantic corruption-checking honeymoon it is. We could also just stay here, he suggested. In our home. Alone. For several days. Now that sounds more appealing. We returned to our tree home hand in hand, and as we climbed the spiral stairs, I marveled at how completely my life had changed. A year ago, I'd been a battle hunter defined solely by her work, convinced that duty precluded personal happiness. Now I was a wife, a ranger, a protector of an enchanted forest, and, most importantly, deeply, completely in love.
Chapter 12. Lucian. 6 months into our marriage, a messenger arrived with urgent news from Jude. Aveline and I were in the northern groves, cataloging new plant growth, when I felt the disturbance at the forest's edge. We returned to find a young courier, exhausted and travel-worn, waiting at the boundary. Messages for the guardian and the ranger? He panted, holding out sealed letters. Aveline's expression darkened as she read hers. It's Carice. Something's happened. My own letter contained similar information. During his trial, Carice had revealed the location of several hidden caches of dark magical artifacts. Jude had sent teams to secure them, but one group had gone missing near the southern mountains. He wants us to investigate, I said, scanning the details. The team leader was someone named Captain Rhodes, apparently one of Jude's most trusted officers. I know Rhodes. Good man, excellent tracker. Aveline looked at me. We should go. The forest? We'll be fine for a few weeks. You've strengthened the wards and there's no immediate threat. She touched my arm. Lucian, we promised to help when needed. This is one of those times. She was right, though I felt the familiar reluctance to leave. But I'd learned over the past months that the forest's protection didn't require my constant physical presence. And more importantly, I'd learned to trust in partnerships, both with Aveline and with Jude. All right, we'll leave tomorrow. The journey south took a week, following the information Carice had provided. The missing team had last been seen entering a valley known for strange phenomena, compasses that spun violently, travelers who lost time, reports of ghostly figures in the mist. Dark magic, I observed as we approached. Old dark magic. This place has been cursed for decades, maybe longer. Can you break it? Possibly. But first we need to find Rhodes and his team. The valley was exactly as described. Unsettling in ways that had nothing to do with obvious danger and everything to do with wrongness. The air felt thick, resistant, like walking through invisible honey. Time seemed to skip and stutter, moments stretching and compressing randomly. Stay close, I warned Aveline, weaving a protective spell around us both. This place wants to separate us, to confuse and disorient. Don't trust what you see or hear unless it's directly in front of you. We pushed deeper into the valley, following traces of the team's passage. Then Aveline spotted something. A piece of torn fabric caught on a branch, bearing the royal insignia. They came this way, she said, examining the cloth. And recently, the fabric hasn't weathered. Following the trail led us to a cave entrance, partially hidden by hanging vines. Dark magic radiated from within, so strong it made my teeth ache. The cache is in there, I said, and probably Rhodes's team. Then let's go get them. Inside, the cave opened into a vast chamber lit by an eerie phosphorescent glow. And there, arranged in a circle around a pulsing dark crystal, were 5 figures. Rhodes and his team, frozen in place, their eyes open but unseeing. They're alive, I said, checking the nearest person. But trapped in some kind of stasis. Can you free them? I studied the crystal, recognizing the spell work. Yes, but it'll take time. And there's something else. I pointed to additional artifacts scattered around the chamber. This is more than just a cache. It's a trap. Carice knew someone would come investigating and he wanted them caught. So all his cooperation, all his information, was a way to hurt Jude even from prison. If Rhodes and his team died here, it would be a significant blow to the kingdom's defenses. Aveline's jaw tightened. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. What do you need me to do? For the next several hours we worked in tandem. I unraveled the spell holding Rhodes's team while Aveline stood guard, keeping watch for any additional traps or defenses. It was delicate work, requiring absolute concentration, and I was grateful for her steady presence. Finally, with a sound like breaking glass, the stasis shattered. Rhodes and his team collapsed, gasping as awareness rushed back. What? Where? Rhodes looked around excitedly before his eyes focused on us. Guardian? Ranger? How did you find us? Jude sent us when you didn't return, Aveline explained, helping him to his feet. How long do you think you've been here? A few hours, maybe? We entered the cave, found the artifacts, and then, nothing. You've been missing for 3 weeks. Rhodes's face paled. 3 weeks? But that's impossible. Not with dark magic, I said, destroying the crystal with a carefully directed burst of power. The artifacts here were designed to trap and hold anyone who found them. Kariza's final revenge. We gathered the remaining artifacts carefully, each one now inert but still potentially dangerous. Rhodes and his team were weak from their ordeal, so we made camp outside the valley for the night. I owe you both my life, Rhodes said quietly as we sat by the fire. My team's lives. If you hadn't come. We made a promise, Aveline said simply, to protect both the forest and the kingdom. You'd have done the same for us. He nodded thoughtfully. Jude chose well when he appointed you both. This partnership between raw nature and civilization, it's working better than anyone expected. I glanced at Aveline, seeing my own satisfaction reflected in her eyes. This was what we'd built, not just a marriage but a meaningful contribution to the world. A way to use our unique position to help others. We returned to the capital with Rhodes and his team, delivering the secured artifacts to Jude. His relief at seeing everyone alive was palpable. Kariz will pay for this deception, he said grimly. But thanks to you both, his final scheme failed. Rhodes, you and your team should rest. And you too, he smiled. You've more than earned your quarterly stipend. Thank you. That night, staying again at the inn near the palace, Aveline and I reflected on the mission. Do you think there will be more? She asked. More traps, more schemes from Kariz? Probably. Men like him don't give up easily. I pulled her close. But we'll handle them. Together. Together, she agreed, and the word had never sounded better. We returned to the Thornwood the next day, and the forest welcomed us home with a chorus of bird song and the sweet scent of blooming flowers. This was our place, our purpose, our life. And it was everything.
Chapter 13. Aveline. 2 years after our wedding, I woke to find Lucian already up, sitting by the window and staring out at the forest with an unreadable expression. Can't sleep, I asked, joining him. Just thinking. He pulled me into his lap. It's been 2 years since Kariz was captured. Since we started this life together. Best 2 years of my life, I said honestly. Mine too. But I've been thinking about what comes next. About the future. A flutter of nervousness moved through me. What about it? The forest is stable. Kariz is imprisoned. We've helped Jude with several other missions, and the partnership between the kingdom and the Thornwood is stronger than ever. He paused. I'm happy, Aveline. Truly happy. But I want to make sure you are too. Of course I am. Why would you doubt that? Because you gave up a lot to be here. Your position in the capital, the recognition you'd earned, the excitement of new missions. And I worry that eventually, this quiet life might not be enough. I turned to look him in the eye. Lucian, listen to me. I didn't give up anything. I gained everything. Yes, I loved the thrill of the hunt, the challenge of difficult missions. But this, I gestured to the forest around us. This is richer than anything I had before. We're not just existing side by side. We're building something meaningful, protecting something important, and doing it together. You're certain? Absolutely certain. I kissed him softly. Though I do have something I want to discuss with you. His eyebrows rose. Should I be worried? Not worried. Just prepared for change. I took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. For a long moment, he just stared at me, expression frozen. Then slowly, wonder spread across his face. Pregnant? You were going to have a baby? Yes. I'd suspected for a few weeks but had wanted to be certain before telling him. I know we haven't talked about children much, and if you're not ready. Not ready, he laughed, the sound joyful and slightly incredulous. Aveline, I never thought I'd have this. Never imagined being a father, having a family. I'd resign myself to eternal solitude. And now, his hand moved to my still flat stomach. Now we're going to have a child. Are you happy? Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He kissed me deeply. Terrified, yes. I have no idea how to be a father. But happy? Overjoyed? Absolutely. We spent the morning making plans, discussing preparations, and marveling at how much our lives were about to change again. By afternoon, I'd convinced Lucian we needed to tell Menel and Jude in person. Their reactions were predictably enthusiastic. Menel cried again, and insisted on arranging for the best midwife in the kingdom to visit us monthly. Jude offered resources, support, and his heartfelt congratulations. Your child will be unique, he observed. born to both the forest and the kingdom, inheriting magic and strength in equal measure. Another reason to ensure the peace between our worlds holds, Lucian said, his hand finding mine. We're building a future not just for us, but for the next generation. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and I was grateful for Lucian's attentiveness. He monitored my health with a combination of magical sensing and old-fashioned fretting that I found both touching and occasionally annoying. I'm not fragile, I reminded him when he tried to stop me from climbing trees in my 5th month. I know, but you're carrying precious cargo, and I'm allowed to worry. Worry quietly then, and let me do my job. He compromised by following me on patrols, ready to catch me if I stumbled, though I never did. The forest itself seemed protective of my condition, with branches moving to support me and paths smoothing themselves before my feet. In my 7th month, Menel came to visit, bringing supplies and his wife Elena, who'd insisted on checking on me herself. You're doing wonderfully, Elena assured me after her examination. Strong, healthy, and that baby has good, powerful kicks. Tell me about it. I think we're raising a warrior. With you two as parents, I'd expect nothing less. That evening, sitting around the fire with Menel and Elena, Lucian asked the question that had been on both our minds. How do we do this? How do we raise a child here, in isolation from other children, from normal society? Who says you have to? Menel replied. You have the tree home here, yes, but you also have connections to the capital. The child can know both worlds, the forest's magic and the kingdom's structure. It's the best of both legacies. He's right, Elena added. And isolation isn't the same as solitude. You'll have visitors, friends, family. This child will grow up knowing they're loved and supported by more people than most. Her words eased some of our concerns, and over the following weeks, we finalized our plans. The child would grow up primarily in the forest, but would regularly visit the capital. Would learn magic from Lucian and combat skills from me. Would understand both duty and joy, responsibility and freedom. Would have everything we could give them.
Chapter 14. Lucian. Our daughter was born on a night when the forest glowed with bioluminescent magic. Aveline's labor was long but uncomplicated, with Elena and the midwife providing expert care. I'd never felt so helpless in my life, pacing outside our room while she worked to bring our child into the world. When I finally heard the baby's first cry, strong and indignant, relief flooded through me so powerfully my knees nearly buckled. Lucian, Aveline called weakly. Come meet your daughter. I entered to find her exhausted but radiant, cradling a tiny bundle. Our daughter had a shock of dark hair, and when she opened her eyes, they were a brilliant blue, my eyes. She's perfect, I breathed, reaching out to touch her impossibly small hand. She gripped my finger with surprising strength, and I felt magic spark between us. The forest's power recognized her, claimed her, welcomed her. What should we name her? Aveline asked. We discussed names for months without settling on anything. But looking at our daughter now, feeling the way the forest responded to her presence, the answer was obvious. Aisling, I said, of the forest, if you approve? Aisling. Aveline tested the name, smiling. It's perfect. Hello, Aisling. Welcome to your home. The first months of parenthood were exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Aisling was a demanding baby, strong-willed and curious even at a few weeks old. The forest doted on her, with branches lowering to let her touch leaves and animals approaching without fear. She's going to be powerful, Aveline observed one afternoon, watching Aisling make a flower bloom with an accidental touch. Yes, and we'll teach her to use that power wisely. I felt the weight of responsibility settling onto my shoulders. To understand that strength means nothing without wisdom, that power serves best when it protects. We'll teach her together, Aveline corrected. All of it, magic and combat, duty and joy, honor and love. True to Menel and Elena's advice, we made regular trips to the capital with Aisling, ensuring she grew up knowing both worlds. Jude was utterly charmed by her, and Menel became the doting grandfather he'd never had the chance to be. She has your stubbornness, Menel told Aveline when Aisling was a year old and refusing to stop trying to climb a tree despite repeated falls. And Lucian's determination, Aveline replied, watching our daughter pull herself up yet again. God's help us all. God's help anyone who tries to stand in her way is more like it. But beneath the challenges was a joy I'd never imagined possible. Coming home to find Aveline teaching Aisling a new word. Watching our daughter's face light up when I showed her a simple spell. The three of us curled up together in the evenings, a family in every sense of the word. This was what I'd been missing all those years alone. Not just romantic love, but the fullness of a life shared with people who mattered. The mess and noise and overwhelming beauty of being needed, being loved, being essential to someone else's happiness. When Aisling was 2, Jude visited the forest himself for the first time, bringing news. Carice died in prison last month, he said quietly as we sat in the stone circle. Natural causes, the healers said. His heart simply stopped. I felt nothing at the news, no satisfaction, no relief, just a distant acknowledgement that a chapter had truly closed. Good, Aveline said simply. The world is better without his darkness in it. Agreed. Which brings me to my other news. Jude smiled. I wanted to tell you in person. The council has officially recognized the Thornwood as a protected territory, with you two as its sovereign guardians. You'll have full autonomy and authority over the forest's management, while maintaining your advisory role to the kingdom. Sovereignty? I repeated, stunned. You've earned it. The forest has never been healthier, and your partnership has prevented countless threats from reaching our borders. This is simply acknowledgement of what's already true, that the Thornwood thrives under your protection. It was more than I dared hope for, official recognition, autonomy, and the security of knowing our work would continue unquestioned. Thank you, I said, emotion tightening my throat, for trusting us, for seeing the value in what we've built. Thank you for building it. Jude watched Aisling toddle past, chasing a butterfly with single-minded determination, and for showing us that the old divisions between magic and mundane, raw nature and civilized, don't have to define us. You've created something new and it's beautiful. That night after Jude had left and Aisling was asleep, Aveline and I stood together at the edge of the stone circle, looking out at our forest home. We did it, she said softly. Built the life we dreamed of. We did. I wrapped my arms around her. And it's more than I ever imagined possible. What do you think comes next? More of this, raising Aisling, protecting the forest, helping Jude when needed, growing old together. Growing old together, she repeated, leaning back against me. I like the sound of that. So do I. Though you'll probably still be climbing trees when you're 70. Absolutely. And you'll still be grumpy about it. I laughed and the sound echoed through the trees, free, genuine, happy. 3 years ago, I'd been alone, convinced that solitude was my fate, that duty meant sacrifice, that guardianship meant isolation. Then Aveline had walked into my forest with her bow and her determination and her refusal to accept my limitations. She'd shown me that duty and desire could coexist. That love didn't weaken responsibility, it strengthened it. That opening yourself to another person wasn't weakness but the truest form of courage. And now here we stood, husband and wife, parents, protectors, partners in every way that mattered. Building a future that honored the past while embracing new possibilities. The forest hummed contentedly around us, its magic intertwining with ours and Aisling's in a tapestry of connection and protection. This was our legacy, not just the preservation of an ancient place, but the creation of something entirely new. A home built on love and trust and honor. A family forged from duty transformed into devotion. A future bright with possibility and hope. And as I held Aveline close, our daughter sleeping peacefully inside our tree home, I knew with absolute certainty that every moment of loneliness, every year of isolation had been worth it. Because it had led me here. To her. To this. To everything.
We hope you have enjoyed this journey with Aveline and Lucian. To help us provide you with more audiobooks, be sure to like and subscribe and click for notifications. Let us know in the comments what you think.